Hello, Gek Am. This video we're going to be talking about the topic of semaphore. Before I dive into what semaphore is, I wanted to briefly touch up on some things you learned in Minta, how there are 4 different methods of communication. One is kaulang, is verbal communication. Second is toulang, hand communication. Third is whistle or umlang. And then finally is galang, or as known as flags in English. So, semaphore is a form of communication utilized for long distances. Particularly in the past, they were used in military or sending messages for rescue crews, save a ship on an island. And so it consists of using these flags to send out different letters or different poses. But in this case, we're just talking about letters. And there are 8 different positions which my arms can be oriented. So we're going to go through from one position at a time. So let's say this position is 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, right? So when I am sending out my message, each pose will require one arm that's considered stationary and another arm that's considered moving. Most of the time, my stationary arm is going to be on this side of the circle, this little circle that I have here. But I'll tell you a little bit more once we go into the different letters for each of these poses that I send out. So in this case, we'll go straight to the semaphore chart. So the first series of letters we're going to take a look at is letters A through G. So this would be the first cycle of letters we're going to learn. Now, my stationary hand, as I stated earlier, is going to be in a downward position or position 1. While from letter to letter, my moving hand, right, will be making its way clockwise around in this circle of positions that I have here. So with A being, my moving hand being in position 2, letter B, my moving hand in position 3, so on, so forth. Pretty straightforward. Next cycle is H through N, except the letter J. The reason for that is because J is not a common letter, nor does it exist in Vietnamese. This time around, my stationary hand is going to be in position 1, and my moving hand will, so starting with the letter H, it'll be in position 3. Then the letter I, which the moving hand will be in position 4, and then it makes its way around from K through N. Okay. Next series, similar pattern. O is O through S, and you get the pattern. My stationary hand will be in position 3, so 90 degrees, and then the letter O, my moving hand will be in position 4. Then P is moving hand should be in position 5. Then makes its way through S. Now the next part is where it gets a little bit tricky. So the next series is T, U, the letters T, U, and Y. And so starting with the letter T, it follows the same pattern where my stationary hand is in position 4, and then followed by the letter U, which is my moving hand will be in position 6, and then the letter Y, which the moving hand is position 7. And then we move on to series J and V, and then the next one is W and X, and then the next one being Z. So it kind of so notice how it all kind of follows that pattern with the stationary hand making its way across the along the circle of positions. So this is where it gets a little bit difficult to memorize, especially when you are recording your semaphore message down. But over time, the more you practice, it'll be much easier to write your semaphore message down by just simply writing the letter itself. So we're now going to be talking about how to write down semaphore messages, right? So each pose, right, that I send out, you're going to figure out, be able to figure out which letter that means. And there's multiple ways you can go about it. So if you are a beginner, I would advise that you stick to these two methods. But over time, make sure you work on it enough so that you're going to memorize what each pose represents each letter, right? So the first method I'm going to go over is called the stick method. Basically, you are going to draw sticks representing the directions that my arms are pointed towards. So So with this method, it is easier because you're just resorting to what you see and then writing it down on paper. But it does get a little bit messy because, one, you're going to be writing all this down while looking at whoever's sending the message. So you're not going to be able to make sure you're writing in a straight line. And you might end up getting a jumbled mess of sticks that may not give you anything at all. But it's still easier to do, and some people might stick to that. The other method is the numerical / compass method, and this one is much faster to write and it's much easier to organize. However, it does become more difficult because you're going to have to memorize, where is position 1 at, where is position 5 at, so on and so forth. And then the compass, or if you don't want to memorize numbers, each position, you can utilize the directions of a compass, like north, south, northwest, southeast, to write out on your paper. However, it's a lot more stuff to write, and I don't know if you will be able to keep up with it as much as, say, the numerical method or the stick method. So feel free to choose between which way works best. And so at this time, or what we're going to do next, is that I'm going to send a semaphore message at 3 different speeds, ng O, ng Hiu, and then Yesi Hip C, for you to be able to practice with the different methods that I'm going to do. So let's do just that. All right, now you should have your message at this point. Whichever method you use, feel free to take this time to decipher or basically pick out what each letter is of that message. And so go ahead and use the semaphore chart to do that. One last thing, so that for Vietnamese messages, they follow the same rules as you do in Morse. Here is the key to decoding or determining whether your message is in Vietnamese or not, with the double A's, double O's, double E's, so on and so forth with that. And that will help you to be able to determine whether you've got the right letters, the right words, or if you perhaps messed up and need the sender to start over again. So have fun, practice real hard and often, and keep working on it so that you can memorize it and become an expert. All right, good luck.